And welcome to Life Support Live, the weekly live show that explores how Star Trek can help us to boldly go in our own lives to better ourselves and the rest of humanity.
As the famous starship captain once said, about, 35 years ago? 25 years ago? 25 years ago, yes. And as another famous starship captain once said, wherever our mission takes us, we'll try to have a little fun along the way.
Hello, everyone. I am psychologist Dr. Ali Mattu.
Yes, you are. And I am Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek. One of us is a real doctor.
And we shall leave it to you to determine whom that might be on this week's episode. A episode that actually came from you all. This came directly from the community. When is resistance futile? Futile? How do you
Well,
go
if
about
resistance is futile, that means we're all just on one big surf.
Yeah.
So I like to go just flip back and forth, whatever the situation, Resistance is futile. I don't know. They did a pretty good job of it in World War II. So, civil rights movement. Well, the jury's still out on that, sadly. Okay. Yes. Resist.
We just spanned the Middle Ages to the civil rights movement. Here, folks, but on Life Support Live.
Because we can. Okay.
So let us know in the comments, what is your favorite episode involving a character potentially giving up and saying, no, I'm walking away from this situation? When was resistance futile for them? Larry, before we get to Star Trek, what is this endeavor that we have engaged ourselves in?
Wait, it's not Star Trek? Okay. Before we get to Star Trek, okay. Well, back in 1963, it was a sad year because No, hi, everybody. Seriously, we're glad to... Wow, there's a siren, if you can hear that. Right when it's my time.
Hurry, Larry, we got 5 minutes before they get us.
No, hey everybody, I'm so sorry. Thank you for joining us, though. Life Support Live, we're here. We're goofing around, but what we are really doing is geeking out on Star Trek, of course, and hopefully making everybody's lives a little easier. We're gonna look at mental health, at daily living through a Star Trek lens, or look at Star Trek through a mental health lens. We have a lot of fun along the way. We have a structure here. We're going to look at some Star Trek examples of today's theme. Yay. And Dr. Ali has some briefing log. I'm going to put our numbers up here again.
Briefing log.
Yes, a briefing log. An away log, a briefing log.
A counselor's log and an away mission is what I've got for you all.
And then I do something, Ali. I'm not sure what I do.
You give us a K3, not a K1, not a K2, but a K3 factor, a deep dive into Star Trek that you probably have not had before.
K3 is original series mental health canon, so take a look at McCoy's bio bit someday.
Yeah, take a look at it someday.
It just might change your life.
Oh,
that's
my
what we're
goodness.
doing here. No, it's good to see you again. It's good to see all the lifers. If you are new to us, jump in. We have a very welcome community. Everybody's having a good time. I'm sure you will learn all the ways of life support as you make your way. That's not required, of course, but it's just there for those who imbibe. But yeah, we have a theme every week. We did a watch along last week, so you never know what we're doing.
Yeah. And the fun part of it is, Larry, neither do we. Charlotte's asking, what is my shirt about? It looks like I love brains? Is it a zombie shirt? No, Charlotte, it is I love science. Science is supposed to be
okay.
I wear these shirts, Larry, and no one can ever see the print because it's always just like bottom, or the bottom is just not.
It's like very rare cereal dressing. It's a half and half.
Yeah, no, I know. That is the art of Hollywood. You never see all the stuff behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And also, Libby wants to know, Larry, can resistance be fertile? I don't.
Sadly, this is true, but that's the topic for another show.
Oh man. Okay, so let's get into this, Larry. Let us open up the briefing room. This is the part of the show where we do a deeper dive into all the Star Trek stories that are related to this topic. And Larry, this topic came out from our community.
Right.
And
Can I just say also,
yeah.
Ali, thanks everybody. If you have not gone to our Facebook page yet, please do that, because that's where we put announcements and goofy things alike are up there, and the community's there and people share. But it's also where I hadn't in a while, so I was glad to do it this week, put up a poll for future topics, future themes for the show. But just because one doesn't win doesn't mean that it's no good. I mean, actually, if you look, this topic this week is just what we decided to do. Also, it's kind of the ebb and flow of the news, what's going on in the world, as well as what we're thinking about coming from Star Trek. But this was not a winner topic, but that does not mean that it's a loser, because it's what we're doing today. But also, everything else in the poll, we'll probably get to that eventually.
We'll probably get to it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's as much about asking everybody to have ideas as it is like, what's the winner this week? So, that's in the fine print. We're not to be sued because this isn't the winner. Your favorite didn't win, but we will get to it coming up. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, in fact, this episode, this idea for this week's episode came from Vivi, who asked, what is the real meaning of resistance is futile? Since it comes up even in the Picard narrative, my thought is it's much bigger than the obvious Borg story or even technology's dark side. Yeah, Vivi, it was such a great question that it led us to this theme, that theme. When is resistance futile? And yeah, we've got a lot to say. And as we open up the briefing room over here, this show is always about finding connections to the here and now, helping us to boldly go in this weird world we live in. And the obvious parallel really became where we are in this pandemic now, and where we might be going in towards a endemic, and how we are potentially changing
the endemic is the end of the pandemic? Is that what endemic means?
Endemic is sort of like the flu. The flu is an endemic. It's there. It's a part of us. We're not getting rid of it. Maybe we do develop some kind of universal flu vaccine, but an endemic is when a virus.
And then next year we need a different flu vaccine.
Well, yeah, basically that's an endemic. Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah. So that was sort of the obvious parallel, but there's a lot of other situations. We don't have to explore all of them, but there's a lot of other situations in life right now where maybe you can't. The goal that you thought would be achievable is not, and then it's about how do we back away. We thought we might be able to flatten the curve, Larry. That curve did not get flattened. It came back. And so we might be in an endemic situation here. But that's a little bit of where this started from, this idea.
Well, and there's some, what did we decide to rule out? We're not doing prime directive debates.
We're not doing Larry, that's...
we'll do that another day, but this would go on forever if we want to talk about that.
That would be the day.
When I don't die?
I was thinking yesterday's Enterprise, but we could go that day, and they'll be singing "My Miss Starship." Nah. More coffee. Not ready for that yet.
Yeah, too much thinking. Too much thinking. Stay on target. Stay on target.
Do not cross the streams, Larry. Don't do it. Don't. I know you want to do it again. No.
Story time.
Ooh, story time, folks.
So this always happens, whether it's a teacher, a coach, someone you really love, especially with kids, but maybe, I don't know, with politicians too. When somebody is really, really good, they become legendary, they become, immemorial, but they finally leave or retire, and they've had a great record at whatever they do. My high school vocal music teacher raised half a generation of local kids and gave lessons and all that. When she finally left that position, it's kind of like the first person to follow someone like that. It's a thankless task, right? They can never live up to it, even though people try to catch them slack. So we had a guy for 1 year after that who could not handle it. And then we had somebody else come in after that who had a good long reign. But this part of this guy's problem was that he had little catchphrases that he fell into. And one of them was when he got hacked off at everybody, he would say, "I wouldn't cross the street with you people." So every time we say don't cross the streams, I always want to say, "I wouldn't cross the streams with you people." Okay, that had totally nothing to do with anything, but I just wanted to get it out. Let's get back to I could not resist the urge to tell that dumb story. So that's a case when maybe I should have. Okay.
I appreciate your aside because it gave me a chance to flag some of these comments that I want to make sure we talk about.
It's all good.
There's a lot of really great comments are coming in. Larry, while
Libby's saying jazz hands, Libby, if you saw the panels yesterday, it's outside jazz hands, not inside jazz hands.
yeah, it's almost as I had some kind of Star Trek dream last night, almost as if there was a lot of Star Trek news yesterday that might have been on the forefront of my.
A lot of Star Trek vividness from people nobody had seen yet until until I'm doing it again until yesterday. Yes,
There's a lot of news, a lot of if for people who are fans of collector plates, yesterday was a big day for Star Trek collector.
They brought back the entire collectible market for collector plates. Of course, after I finally got rid of mine, but okay.
My wife was at some kind of flea market many years ago with a friend, and someone was selling this Commander Riker commemorative plate, like early TNG, for like $5, and the friend's like, "You got to get this for Ali," and my wife was like, he doesn't have any collector plates, and he doesn't often talk about Riker. I don't know if he's gonna want this. And the friend was like, "No, you have to get it. Like, he loves Star Trek. He'll love this." And my wife got it, and she's like, "Here you go." And I'm like, "What am I gonna do with that?"
Oh, just hang on, Ali. Someday Tom Paris plates will be popular, and it'll overflow onto this.
Yeah. It'll bring up the value there.
Well, that reminds the early Galoob action figures, like in '88, the first season of Next Gen, and Jonathan has that story about he was at a con looking around. He was so excited to have the action figures out. And the way they packaged them, it was like the Datas and the Yars were rare, and there were more Rikers in a package. Anyway, he was always like, buy two, get a free Riker. He always goes to that. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. So back to the show. Larry, where in the canon would you like to begin our journey today?
Well, let's begin our Well, Ali, I'd like to take. I saw Jared talking about LeVar Burton hosting Jeopardy next week. So,
it starts next week.
Original series for season 2, Ali.
Okay.
I'd like to take Gene Coon for 2, for 1.
I'm guessing you're talking about this episode right here.
Yeah. This to me, because here's the thing: we got this topic today. Resistance is futile. And we were talking about the dimensions of it. That's Private Little War, by the way, everybody. The Vietnam allegory. And
one of my favorites.
Being a kid, certain things, I think maybe not the first time. The first time you're just kind of like on sponge mode, the way you are when you watch any Star Trek for the first time. And not having the luxury of just rewinding it. Much less on your streaming channel. But when you could not just rewind the show and watch it again.
Or pause. You could
pause. Yes. As my daughter once told me when we were little, we were reading a book. She said, pause the book. And I was like, oh, these tech generation kids. As it hit me the second time through, whoa, that was not a happy ending, or as I call them, a Flintstones. No. That was like, they did not save the day. They did not solve the problem. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I got it that it was a Vietnam allegory, and that was great. And still when I was watching it, that was still
Can we
very
set
powerful.
it up, Larry? I think there's folks who might not remember it or maybe haven't seen
true.
it.
Can you put the slide back
Yeah,
up?
yeah, yeah. So Kirk and crew find themselves on a planet where other forces. It's the Klingons and is it the
The hill,
Klingon?
no, it's the Klingons are interfering. It's the hill people and the Vigilant. He'd been there as a cadet. He'd visited. It was this wonderful little idyllic planet. These villagers, the hill people. It was great, but he was undercover, so he didn't break Prime Directive. They were
Right,
very much pre-warp.
right.
They were like a 15, 16, 1700s era society. And it was a great McCoy story too. Um, but the problem is the Klingons have come in and armed one side against the other. They've got something they
Yes,
want. They're just trying to get in. They're just trying to whatever be cardboard 60s Klingons
yes.
and not honorable at all. But then when did that ever stop them later? Um, and they beam down for a friendly visit, and he gets shot at by a rifle, or Spock gets shot, and they're like, what is going on here? This is not the peaceful planet I visited 10, 15
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
And it's an allegory on Vietnam because the Federation, through Kirk, feels like they have to give
Right,
lock rifles
right,
to the hill people, his friend Tyree,
right.
because the villagers have guns, and it'll be a bloodbath if they don't.
It,
And it's Prime Directive, but it's Prime Directive. It's a 60s edition of the Prime
It's
Directive.
it's if I remember, and correct me if I'm just making this up, Larry, but I think there is a little aspect of the domino theory in this episode.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. They directly allude to Southeast Asia. If this planet falls, the Klingons will just get more and more. We have to help these guys
yeah,
resist the
which
Klingon influence.
which was a rationale given for why the United States should enter
Vietnam.
should go to war in Vietnam
Because if
because
South Vietnam falls, then it'll be Cambodia and
it'll
Laos
it'll
and Burma,
spread
and
like
by God,
dominoes,
next thing
right?
you know, the Philippines and India
Which
and
did not happen.
which
But it was the rationale that was given that communism would spread in that way. And where this episode ends is Kirk is in this dilemma, and Bones says like, "My God, Jim, what are you gonna do?" And I think Kirk says, "Bones, what would you have me do?" Like there is no right
Mhm.
answer, and he just leaves, and the episode just ends.
It ends. He says, "Beam us up, Mr. Spock. We're very tired."
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how it ends. Yeah,
And when you're 16 and you're whatever, and you're used to seeing everything like, oh, tied that one up in a bow on Star Trek or anything else, that was, I mean, the first time I got that, it was like, whoa, they didn't fix everything. They didn't solve the day.
yeah, yeah.
That's just, to me, that's still one of the most powerful moments of any. My point here is, as we were going through all the series, we've got something. When we first outlined this topic, is resistance futile? Of course, we always think of the Borg and we think of Picard first. Okay, meaning or resistance is futile. And I think you said, well, is it always futile, or should it always be futile? It's like, think of the ramifications here, and we think of Picard being, relentless, having the fortitude, you said,
Yeah.
to keep up the fight, however you need to do it, right?
Yep.
Or all through TNG and through Voyager, it's all about finding ways to resist the Borg, to overcome. And now we got the 8472 guys, or the Undines, if you play STO. And it is about resisting. But then the other side of the coin is, which I thought was great, is maybe sometimes resistance is futile, and maybe that's a good thing. And maybe sometimes
Yes.
it's not them, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So part of the power of Private Little War. I'm hoping our chat folk are going to help me out here, because it's like, oh, it's just the old original series. It's so 60s. But Ollie, I'm sure we'll come up with some. But I started tripping through all the other series, and I don't know if I could come up with a good example that equals Private Little War. About
We've got some. The chat's brought up a few, and I've kind of flagged them. But what's there's so I could talk about a Private Little War all day.
Different angles we're going to play with this. So
Yeah, I could talk about a Private Little War all day, because when it didn't really hit me until I saw this for the third or fourth time, just how dramatic of an episode it is for Star Trek, and how it is Star Trek doing social commentary. And now another layer to this that I haven't really thought about before is it is about Kirk stepping away from this situation, which is essentially what the United States did too with Vietnam.
It's what the United States is doing right now with Afghanistan.
It's with Afghanistan too. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so this is a really complicated question. When I think someone just brought it up in the chat. Nathaniel brought it up. Giving up resistance politically can be a difficult choice. It's very difficult to determine that we are going to leave this conflict, and we know we are leaving it in a complicated situation. There's no right thing to do here, and we're leaving. And
the idealism of your initial intent did not come anywhere close to being fulfilled.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
You had the helicopter on the roof of the embassy in Saigon moment. They're looking at having that again when they're trying to now get all the translators out before they're wiped out. The local collaborators, the same vengeance that the French did away with all the Nazi collaborators. I mean, it's other side of the coin. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? I mean, I know who I think the good guys and bad guys are, but that's the human dilemma of the situation.
Yeah. These are
history written by the victors kind of a thing. But part of the walk, that whole when is it time to walk away, it's also part of that is, live to fight another day.
Right.
Part of that is come back and then you either re-engage again later when the situation changes, or do you open your eyes and find a different way that's beneficial for both sides to come at it again. Maybe you give up something and there's a compromise, or maybe you just re-engage from a different angle or something. But, it's like the paradigm has shifted. The exact original situation has changed for whatever reason. And maybe you'll have more traction coming at it from a different, more purchase from a different angle. So but that plays out in all these plots of episodes.
They do, and they also play out in the plots of movies. And I think there's two that really came to our mind. The first was, of course, The Wrath of Khan. When is it time to give up? Well, this is not really a lesson that Khan learns in this.
Well, you can come at this from both sides.
You can.
You got the Kirk side, and then you got the Khan side.
Right. So Khan is.
You could even say you've got the Spock side.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, you've got all of these sides. There's many sides. It's a triangle here.
Let me do my impersonation of Spock in The Wrath of Khan.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Do you want to see my impression?
Find a new part of the bridge to stare at, and then get up and leave. That's what you.
Let me give you my impression of Spock during Wrath of Khan. Remember. That's it.
It brings me to tears every time.
Brings a tear to me eye. Okay, let's sort of I think let's look at these three characters here. I think that's a nice way to frame this, Larry. So Khan is completely focused on vengeance and on revenge. And if I was Khan's therapist, one of the things I would tell him is, can you imagine?
That's the new sequel, The Therapy of Khan. Yeah.
The Therapy of Khan. Oh my gosh. He would be screaming, my copay!
Sorry, trampled on your line. I was going to say, Mini K3 here is the original name of the movie. I finally got it. The original name was The Vengeance of Khan.
Oh, yeah.
But they changed it because the Star Wars movie was going to be The Vengeance. The
it was going to be Revenge of the Jedi.
Yeah, Revenge of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Start saying The Revenge of the Sith. No.
No, that was not made yet.
That would not be. And then they changed. And then they both changed. So it's one of those things.
They both changed.
It's two titles passing in the night. Okay.
That reminds me of the Brent Spiner joke for Star Trek Nemesis. There was one version of the draft that the execs liked, but the cast didn't like. There was one version that the cast liked, where everyone had a doppelganger that the execs didn't like, and then there was one version that the execs didn't like and the cast didn't like, and that's the version that they made. Anyways, so if I was Khan's therapist, one of the things I would want to help him realize is revenge rarely resolves whatever feelings you're having. So the anger that Khan has for
Cold
being
or
left
otherwise.
buried alive, buried alive, buried alive.
I just got that on right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. The line. Okay.
he wouldn't.
Been there, done that.
Those feelings wouldn't necessarily be resolved by pursuing this revenge, but Khan is pursuing it with all to the nth degree. Khan is pursuing this revenge. Now, what about
the roots of Nibia and et cetera, et cetera? Yeah.
Now, you were saying there's also a Kirk angle here.
Oh, be careful though. This plate's cold.
Now, is that one of those Tom Paris plates that I've been looking for?
Yes. Getting a little fumey in here. Okay.
No, Larry, what?
You hasn't seen the trailer pilots yesterday? The trailer pilots.
The trailer pilots.
Yes, for Lower Decks. That's what we're referring to. So it's out there. It's online if you haven't seen it yet. So anyway.
So Larry, what's the Kirk angle here to Resistance is Futile?
Well, it's does he give up?
Yeah.
He's being hunted. So I mean, Khan keeps coming back at him, and he keeps missing the target.
Yeah. You just can't seem to get me, Khan. Keep missing the target. He's so good at pissing off Khan. He's so good at it.
And Nick Meyer was so good at finally getting Shatner to where he ought to be the whole time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You hear the story about having him do fire 50 times just to wear him down.
No, but my favorite Kirk fire is Star Trek 6, where the missile, all that stuff is finally online, and he kind of like leans forward. Fire. Kinda like, oh, it's ready. Fire. That's my favorite one. But yeah, I mean that is kind of the theme, right? Like Kirk no-win scenario here.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't give up, but the difference between
Bingo.
Kirk and Picard. Yeah, I picked up on that theme of the movie.
How did you really? The no-win scenario and the no-win scenario.
It's a subtle. It's subtext. It's very subtle.
Later, every iteration of Star Trek is still talking about no-win scenarios. Kind of had an impact, yes.
The thing about the thing that separates Kirk and Khan. Many things. Kirk is not a superhuman. The only thing he's got is the Starfleet regulation two-handed chop. But what?
Kirk, yes. Or Kirk, was it? What is it? Mariner says Kirk chop.
Kirk.
Yeah.
What's great about Kirk is he is focused on a goal, but he's flexibly focused on it. Whereas Khan just wants one thing. He wants revenge. He wants Kirk to suffer. He wants Kirk to be in pain. All those kind of things. But Kirk is able to kind of think about what are all the different options here. And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, like Shatner's performance in Wrath of Khan is so like, mwah, chef's kiss. Because he's performing to Khan. People don't realize that he's egging on Khan in so many ways. He's playing to Khan, and and you
pushing all the right buttons.
He's pushing all the right buttons, yeah. And as we talked about before, his the Spock funeral scene. I mean, it's so incredibly emotionally done. Shatner is firing at all cylinders here. But there's also the when is Resistance futile? Like Picard. Sorry, not Wrong, Captain. Kirk definitely doesn't think resistance is futile when it comes to Kobayashi Maru, and he knows that there's always options, right? There's always something that can be done, and he's willing to kind of maneuver around the rules. Let me just reprogram this exam. It's not winnable. Oh, yes, it is.
Which, in the guise of a test quiz game, is maddening. But that's what diplomacy is. Diplomacy
Sure.
is what I just said. You withdraw, and rather than re-hardwire the rules, you just try to come at the situation from a different angle. I'm going to rewrite the rules of expectations and attitude and what our blinders may and may not be, blocking. And I mean, all the things, all the variables are involved in this interaction. God, I suddenly sound very academic here or something. Ollie says, no, you don't. But no, it's like it's what Kirk did as a game quiz that would be bad behavior unless you finally win it. But that's what diplomacy is. That's what hostage negotiation. That's what any kind of interaction like that is. It's stepping back and rewriting the rules to get to a desired effect. Hopefully, it's like a mutually desired effect, but getting one anyway.
Yeah.
I just thought of that. We all laugh at that. Oh, it's like he rewrote the rules. Well, that's what we have to do to get through life.
Yes.
Because the rules we start, if nothing else, the rules that started, here's the way the job market works, kids, when you're 18 or 12. And oh, look, now you're 30 or 40 or 50. And look, those rules you learned early on, it's a different world. And, to take one thing, here's the way you used to fight wars. If you give up and you're stuck and you're a professional soldier, here's the way you fight wars now. And oh, look, we invented the machine gun or whatever, or the atom bomb or whatever. That's a horrible metaphor to go to. But
yes, that's it. It is. No, but it's
that just struck me that rewriting the Kobayashi Maru is what I mean. They have all these life and death metaphors. The way you approach life is the way you approach death, and eat another apple and whatever. It's anyway. I'm going to sit here and stew on this and read some more chat.
Yeah. No, it's always good. Always good to stew a little. No, I think it's good advice, and it's also, Larry, very reflective of our last year. I mean, the rules are helpful.
Latest year.
Yeah, what's that?
Our latest year.
Sure.
I hope it's not our last year.
No, the previous year, silly Larry. Rules are helpful until they're not. And if we stuck to the way that we were doing things in 2019, 2020 would have been a very hard year. We have to have some of the flexibility of Kirk, and what he really excels at is being able to develop other paths forward that people might not consider. I think that's what's we talked about a Private Little War, where he said, you know what? No, I'm not engaging. I'm getting out of here. And we talked about Wrath of Khan here with the Kobayashi Maru, or
I thought about very famously throwing in the very famous "No, I will not kill today," which is pretty black and white, pretty stark with the Gorn in Arena.
Well, if you want to talk about black and white, we can also talk about Let That Be Your Last Battlefield if you like to go that direction. But there's also
silver platter.
As Libby asked us, when is is revenge a dish best served cold? I actually like my revenge hot. I like it steaming. But anyways, and then
that's
of course
what you get at the Mexican revenge restaurants. It's a hot plate.
I like it with a little spice. Give it some jalapenos, a little bit of habanero sauce. But there's also the story of Spock here, which obviously Spock, the needs of...
Don't talk about this. The story of Spock in this movie is just dead to me.
Oh.
Spoilers.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the Larry joke. I think that's the full... is that the full Vulcan expression there?
Apparently so.
And
please proceed, Governor. Go ahead.
Page two. Let's move on
We
to.
have some other examples to get to.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes.
do. We do.
But
And we're still talking about Kirk and Klingons.
or shackles in the 23rd century, just so everybody knows this.
So let's talk about undiscovered country here. And we surrender. What? We surrender. Um, so Kirk and Bones surrender themselves to the Klingons after they look around, and Scotty's like, apparently we did fire these photons. And then everyone's like, what? And everyone kind of turns and is checking their screens. I guess we fired these. I mean, we got all of our things accounted for, but it looks like we fired it. I guess we fired it. And Kirk's like, well, I guess we surrender. So this is a cool moment in undiscovered country that I didn't really think about until we got to this week's episode. But yeah, what's going on here, Larry?
That's just me. I just did a weird gesture. That's all. What do you mean?
Okay. No. This is my
in that
assist.
in that image?
Yes.
I mean, in that image? No, it's Kirk. They look around. The smart thing is there's not a daring do. I mean, for one thing, they're near retirement age, but it's not the 2260s anymore. But no, it's like they give up because it's the only. They're on a Klingon ship, for God's sake, and the Gorkon this is the Kittimer conspiracy that leads to the Kittimer Accords. But basically, only Nixon could go to China. Only Kirk could go deal with Klingons after the explosion of practice, and they have their Chernobyl moment. But what they don't realize is very hardcore conservative elements in both the Federation and the Klingon Empire are wanting to keep this Cold War going because it's to their benefit. They're making bucks. They're making darsecs. They're making credits off of the continuing hostilities. Peace is not the way for them, even though, and there are moles, there are conspiracy, and they don't know how big and deep it goes on both sides, but they walk into this, and the Klingon chancellor is assassinated while they're right after their peace dinner.
Right.
And McCoy tries to save him, but it gives General Chang, who is the on the site conspirator, gives him a chance to have trump up and have a monkey trial, and arrest them and put them on trial as a convenient scapegoat for this. And you keep everything ramped up and ginned up. The classic autocrat fascist. It's everybody else's fault. It's everybody else's fault. It's not us. And they find a common bond in their mutual antagonism versus those who would like to wipe that away. So anyway, what we're seeing here is, in the moment, Kirk and McCoy bow the inevitable and actually surrender. They don't fight their way out. It's not a happy dappy ending for a while, and they wind up going to Kittimer, the prison planet, and all that. And you have the whole plot.
Not Kittimer. They go to.
They
do go to Kittimer eventually, but they end up at Rurapente for the rest of your lives. You will mine the dilithium of Rurapente.
What? Wait, where were they put in prison?
Rurapente.
Okay. Just want to make sure I had it. Okay.
Sometimes I'm like, I didn't know I had that in me, but apparently I do. And some might argue I don't. But.
Someday we're going to get out of the original series era, though. Someday.
Yeah, it's going to take some time, Larry. We still have the first 10 minutes of Star Trek Generations we can explore.
I was just going to say that.
Kirk's skydiving deleted scene in Star Trek Generations is also a great. No, I'm kidding.
Resistance is futile. He's resisting growing older and retiring. But
hey, there we go. You got a connection there. No, the thing I want to say about Star Trek Undiscovered Country here, this particular moment, is that Kirk realizes that if he resists, if he raises shields, if he does not surrender himself in that moment, the Enterprise is going to contribute to an all-out war. in that situation. That this is war will break. The chancellor has been killed on a peace mission, on a mission of peace. That this will escalate. It's maybe something, maybe, Larry, if the crew of the Shenzhou watched this moment.
Compare, contrast. I was just going to say, compare, contrast with the Vulcan hello. Okay, yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. They kind of should have maybe, they maybe should have seen, that would be, speaking of resistance is futile.
Sounds like a Klingon war cry. Okay. Somebody just go to Stovacor?
Klingon war cry is often what my daughter sounds like when we're trying to record Life Support Live. I was gonna say something.
You were comparing
the Vulcan
you were
hello.
comparing the Shenzhou and the and the Battle of the Binary Stars, which
Right.
means there's 4 of them if it's plural, but I won't go there again. Okay.
The battle of the two
Binary star. It's the Battle of the Binary Stars, so there's 2 different binary. Okay.
So he realizes that if he resists, lives are going to be lost. A lot of lives are going to be lost, and the Federation is going to be committed to a war. And despite
That's it. We didn't want it. Oh, we got it.
Yeah.
Oh, other reference. Okay.
And Larry, if you, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Like if you with all of the Badmiralty, and also Chang on the Klingon side, these people do not want peace. The war machine in the Federation and Klingon Empire, they want more war. They thought Kirk would fire. They're setting him up. It's a setup, Jim. They're setting him up.
Yes, as that noted Ferengi philosopher Quark once said, war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Well, no, war is good for peace, and I mean, war is good for business, and peace is good for business.
Right, and peace is good for business too. Yeah.
He also said war is war. What's it good for? Absolutely nothing. I think he stole that, but
maybe. He was set up to go to war here, and Kirk does what he does. He did a little bit of a Kobayashi Maru. He saw another option. And he said, "You know what? No, we're going to turn ourselves in." And I'm sure all the Admiralty was like, "What?" So it's a wonderful moment, Larry. It's a great example here.
Yeah, but we should probably. I hear there's other Star Treks we could probably talk about, and we're an hour in.
Well, let's go in a very different direction, and let's talk about a character we don't often get a chance to talk about too much. And of course, I'm talking about Dr. Crusher. I really love this episode, Larry. This episode is called Remember
Me.
Remember Me.
Remember me.
Though I have to travel far, remember me. Each time I play a sad guitar. You haven't seen Coco?
Is that what Remember Me? I knew it was a 50s pop song. No, I haven't seen Coco, although I know Renee Auberjonois was in it because we have the soundtrack that I never listened to that we bought at a charity breakfast auction thing when he cleaned out his closet.
You should listen to the soundtrack. It's pretty good. Coco is a really good movie. It's well done. Anyways, we're talking about Dr. Crusher. I love this episode, Larry. So the universe is shrinking.
It sneaks up on you. It comes out of nowhere as far as what you're expecting.
Yeah,
it's a really wacky twist show.
Yeah,
yes.
It does. It does have that wacky twist. You got to do the Delta maneuver around that twist.
I've just been debating how to fight the Delta maneuver right now. So let's.
Oh yeah. No. If anyone can get us out of this Delta variant, it would be the crew of the USS Voyager. They know. They know how to navigate around this kind of stuff. We need Janeway from the future to come back and arm us. Is I think what we need right now.
I need some ablative armor against the
Okay.
No, but remember me, Crusher.
Let's talk about this episode, Larry. I really love this episode.
I didn't do the token. She's flying out horizontally into the vortex. I'll save that for another day. Yeah.
No, so yeah, let's talk about this episode. Um, Here's the line of this episode is, if there's nothing wrong with me, then there has to be something wrong with the universe, right? That amazing line. And what here's an episode where Beverly does not give up, where she is so convinced of her belief that there is something wrong here, that she keeps exploring it and finding ways to make the data fit. And then at some point, Larry, the data doesn't fit anymore. And I'm not talking about our officer, our ops officer, the data doesn't fit anymore. The information that she has no longer works. It is not,
Yeah.
it's not right. Like, it's
Non
not,
sequitur. Non sequitur. Yes.
yeah, it's not piecing together, and that's where she has this moment of insight. If there's nothing wrong with me, then there's something wrong with the universe. The only way to make this information fit is if you kind of reconceptualize everything. And what I love about this is, not only is Dr. Crusher our chief medical officer, but she is a person of science. She is so often. I mean, all of our characters they're all scientists, but we often. One of the things that Beverly does get to do is she does get to do a lot of science, like what's happening here, like gather data, form a hypothesis, test it out. And this episode is her doing that. And what often happens in science is we develop these theories and we keep getting new information that we try to make fit into a theory. And then at some point, the theory doesn't work anymore, and you have what's called a paradigm shift, that the only way in which the information will make sense at all is a brand new theory. Enter relativity. This is...
It's a brand new day. Okay.
But that happens in science all the time, is... theories are very helpful until they don't work anymore, and then you need a completely new way of seeing things. And
That's one thing that's been maddening to me about the pandemic. And I really don't chalk up scientific maneuvering, and the scientific method I don't think is, of course it's prone to manipulation, but I don't think there's a conspiracy behind the idea of, at first it was about, don't worry about wearing masks, just wash all surfaces. And then they shifted. I mean, there was a concern about the mask production at the beginning.
Right.
But these people that all said, well, 1 minute they're telling us this, and the other minute, it dawned on me a few days ago, this frustration right now with where we are and how we may be backsliding and all of that. And I say we as a collective, not me personally. But there are a lot of people that don't know what science really is. They misunderstand what law and theory mean in a scientific context. But what they really don't get is, I see a lot of lay people with frustration that they can't just get it. Like, just give me the rules and I'll do it. Or last year you told me this and now you're telling me that. And now you're telling me a third thing. It's like this is why they don't go into science, because that's frustrating, because science it's a process. It's not a thing.
Yeah,
We're all living in a giant living petri dish. And some people can't handle that. They want to know the outcome and the answers right now. And they don't get that that's not what science is about. It hopefully is eventually. But while you're living the petri dish, you're just another test subject in one grand ongoing, experiment.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think science is very frustrating for a lot of people, because science is not about truth. Science is about
black and white answers.
Yeah, science, yes, it's not about black and white, all or nothing. It's really about what is supported versus what is less supported. And if you talk to the problem with talking to any scientist and trying to get a straight answer out of them is you're not going to get it, because it all depends on context. It depends on the information. It depends on how much we know. And you're right, Larry. Like that is a lot of our story of the pandemic. Of what is this new virus? We don't know. How is it transmitted? We're not sure. how do you keep yourself safe? Well, you can try these things, and now here we are, a year and a half later. There's a lot of what we know a lot about COVID, and it's also an ever evolving situation. New variants, new changes, new things happen, but we do have some fundamental knowledge, and science is never going to give you an absolute answer, and it's certainly not going to do that right away. The research needs to be done, and research is always just about what is more supported versus what is less supported. I mean, the whole field of psychology, like human behavior, is very complicated, but the best psychology can do is tell you, well, in this situation, with these types of circumstances, with these kind of people, this is what's probably likely. But like all those things don't line up all the time. Science is messy and complicated, and I love that Dr. Crusher walks us through that process and gets to a point where it's like, none of this is making sense anymore. Maybe because all of this doesn't make sense, and that is my way through this problem. I love that episode.
Yeah.
It's also just great to see Gates McFadden get like a lot to do.
Right.
Like,
just have it be a Gates show.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
Of not to layperson this too much, but the moments of insanity when her bubble is getting smaller and smaller, and it comes, she's in the briefing room and it's like, what? Everybody's like, am I crazy? What is it? Am I mad? Is everyone else? And then when it just comes down to her and Picard.
Yes.
And then he's gone. And then she's
yeah. What is? I think she asked the computer that question.
Yeah.
Doesn't she ask the computer that question, like, what is the size of the universe? And the computer's like, the universe is like 10 meters big or something like that.
Yeah.
Beverly's like, how does this make sense to you? I like what Linda says here. Science is like babies. Once you think you have them figured out, everything changes. Everything changes. Yes, Linda, absolutely. That is a wonderful way to think about it. Larry, let's poke around here to.
Well, okay. So I did send you probably the first time we hear. Well, no, I think Q Who is probably the first time we hear resistance is futile.
Q Who?
The appearance of the Borg the first time.
Who?
Yeah. Q.
I know.
Yes.
I know. I'm just.
Did you miss your cue? Well, he's coming back. Part season 2. Okay.
Hi. Keep it up.
P's and Q's. No, resistance is futile is uttered by the Borg in Q Who, the appearance. But I mean, everybody. I sent you the iconic. There's a lot of me hates going to the obvious thing, but okay, I threw in accidental iconic laser pointer. Look, we're going to guarantee our show skyrockets in ratings and new viewers next year. Moment. But I mean, resistance is futile. We talked about Picard. I don't know if how much we want to talk about Picard and the Borg and breaking your little ship.
No, I'd rather jump to DS9 and there's not a quote, a comment. There's a few comments. Libby said the entire basis of DS9 is Sisko resisting being the prophet, being the emissary, becoming the emissary to the prophets. And I think you're right here, Libby. The whole series starts with a few different forms of resistance, whether it is, I was about to say Avery Brooks, whether it is Benjamin Sisko.
I'm spreading it to you, yes.
I know, you are. I should really wear my face mask. It's initially his reluctance and resistance to the posting of Deep Space Nine. Also, his resistance and reluctance to interacting with Jean-Luc and blaming him for the loss of his wife. The emissary is so much about Benjamin Sisko's fighting back against his feelings, his posting, his position, all of this sort of stuff. And that's where the genesis of this show really is. It comes from Sisko resisting some of the fate. Yeah.
Well, especially by the time the show winds up and you find out that a founder, not a founder, you found out that a prophet was inhabiting his mother's. I mean, you weird stuff you did not get. You didn't think about at the beginning. And I doubt that Michael and Rick, when they did the pilot script, Michael Piller and Rick Berman, when they did the pilot script, had any idea where the show was going to go. That was a lot of what Ira Bear and his guys got brought to it. So.
And we have a wonderful example of this coming from the comments. Larry, I'm surprised we didn't think of this, but Eddington is a wonderful.
Flagged that. Yeah. I had that one flagged. Yeah.
Nathaniel says Eddington is an interesting case. Resistance was very much about his self-concept, or resilience, I should say, is very much about his self-concept, his identity, as much as it was about justice. It's a blind spot that inhibited his effectiveness as a leader. Charlotte also mentioned, I love Michael Eddington. A lot of folks are mentioning Eddington as a character here. And Eddington sort of does play this role of a con type of character to Kirk. And here we have an Eddington is definitely Sisko's kind of Kirk. There's a point where Eddington is like being hailed and Sisko's talking to him. I think he's on the Defiant. Sisko might be on the Defiant. And Sisko sort of like basically threatens like completely destroying everything just to get to him. And like the whole crew kind of look at like, is he serious? Is he like, we're just gonna like blow stuff up just to get to Eddington?
I don't have an airlock to throw you out of, so I'm going to do the next best thing. Well, they do. They wipe out his. I mean, yeah, they go for it. He goes full on Picard Kirk on him. Ahab.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and
he can live with it.
I will live with it. He
through a drinking glass darkly. Yeah.
He does he go down the same path of Khan here? Is he consumed with revenge? Does Sisko?
I was going to say who? Sisko or Eddie?
Yeah, Sisko or Eddie, because we can look at it from both perspectives. And who's right here? Who should back down and who did back down?
Well, obviously Ben didn't back down, Sisko didn't back down, and Eddington, neither one did. And when you have nobody backing down, very rarely do both win when one doesn't. Ultimately, what is it? You get to a life and death situation and one loses and one wins.
This is my subtle way of asking Larry, what ends up happening to Eddington? I sort of forgot right now. Where does that story end up?
It does not end well.
It doesn't end well for Eddington, right?
Right.
And his people and the Maquis.
Yeah. This is at one point late in the Eddington curve. In the arc, I just want Eddington to stand up and go, "Oh my God, Ben, we're only Maquis to get Voyager launched. Why are you still caring about us?
Yeah. They're 5 seasons in. Let them be. Come on.
They don't even care about the Maquis, and it was made for their show."
And a lot of folks are also mentioning, Charlotte's saying here, I love Eddington's Les Mis parallels, but in his version, Sisko is the villain. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Eddington, get out of that shuttle bay.
You're going.
One more star date.
I'm just going to give you the musical crown today. We've gone from Coco to Les Mis to whatever. So, yeah.
And Nathaniel also mentions bada bing, bada bang, the end of Sisko's resistance. So Sisko is also resisting joining the holodeck program, joining VIX. Mm-hmm. And because it's not depicting the racial discrimination that existed at that time.
Right.
And he and Cassidy have a conversation about
He
it.
doesn't want to perpetuate lie.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and Cassidy sort of has a conversation with him about like what the role of Vix is, and this is how it could be, and this is how it should have been, which does kind of change Cisco's perspective on it. That's a nice deep cut there, Nathaniel. Nice one, nice one there. We also mentioned another one in our discussions, Larry, which is this one, what we leave behind.
Yeah, I mean, this theme, when is resistance futile? It's futile. It's like there's so much scale to it, right? So you can talk about the Borg, and you can talk about those guys, the Dominion, especially, aka the Founders. I mean, we're talking about these little stories of Beverly and, well, Ben is not such a small story, but
we're talking about the complete arc of Benjamin Sisko.
Yeah, well, you have the complete. Well, we'll get to Voyager. Janeway resisting the idea of just sitting where they are, and not trying to get home. I mean,
yeah,
you can talk about these epic things, but that's the life and death sagas are the easy ones to look at. Picard and the Borg are easy to say. Oh, well, here's a resistance or not. Resist or die, live free or die.
Yeah.
But that's a case where resistance was the thing to do. That was the piece. That was the Battleship Missouri moment there, where they're signing they're signing a good old fashioned peace treaty in the presence of all the regular cast, a few big wigs, and a Romulan extra because nobody really cares about Romulans. But that's like this theme taken writ large, taken to the extreme, which are the easy ones to think of, but along the way, there are a lot of little battles about resisting the insidiousness of what the Founders represent. Which they're great villains because they had their point of view. They were persecuted shapeshifters, and they're like, "We'll get back against you guys,"
Well, and
resistance was the way, but not at the right time.
You keep missing. I forget now.
Keep missing the timing.
You keep missing that. So to get to this point, I think it's also useful to see who's in this shot. We have Romulans, we have Klingons, we have the Federation, we have the three main powers of the Alpha Beta quadrants. They're against the Dominion, the Gamma Quadrant, our foes in the Gamma Quadrant. To get to that point, Larry, a lot of stuff had to happen. And the only way Sisko was able to, the only path he saw to this point was to bring the Romulans into the war, which, enter in the pale moonlight, and my favorite episode of DS9. And it does show what were the consequences for Sisko to really believe that resistance is not futile against the Dominion. Like the extent that he had to go to break the rules, to compromise on his own morals for the greater good. And we can have that whole debate. But I think what it shows is this something that's really important to you? Sometimes achieving that goal might come at a very big cost.
No matter what. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so DS9 is a wonderful example of that. But you mentioned it, and I think it is kind of the story of the series.
That little show called Voyager.
Voyager.
This encapsulates everything about Voyager in one two-parter, Year of Hell, which is a lot of people's favorite episode. But again, it's like an atypical, so it's a reset button on steroids. But she persists through all the different iterations until it's time to blow herself up. Just But that's how you defeat the reset shows. That's how yesterday's Enterprise. We're going to give up the Enterprise to reset the timeline. So, but anyway, it's a good drama. In that iteration, that Janeway doesn't give up, just like the other ones wouldn't. But that's in her way. Anyway, there's other. Yeah, the whole arc of the damn show is someone not resisting.
Yeah. So There's a lot of ways in which we can go with Voyager. Year of Hell is definitely a good example. Boy, I wish we got that season instead of just the two-parter. That would have been something. Anyways,
they would have had to make physical changes to the ship model, and that was just been so expensive.
I like that Charlotte says the Janeway maneuver, pile drive the ship into the problem. Oh man. And Nathaniel says, how long can you resist not pushing the reset button? And then Glad says they basically press the reset button in Voyager every week. So I think what I love about Voyager, it is about Janeway does not compromise on Starfleet morals, Starfleet ethics, the Starfleet guiding mission. That is something that she believes resistance to that is not futile. That the only way through is by holding on to what makes them Starfleet officers. Ignore all the Maquis people on the ship for a moment. We're just talking about the Starfleet officers. But the wonderful episode with the Equinox, the wonderful two-parter, is really a great example of, well, what could be possible if, just gotta bend those morals a little bit. Like, you can get home a lot faster.
Don't resist so hard.
Yeah. Just, let it back a little bit.
Resistance is futile. Just get by.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah, do what you got to do. Like, make those compromises, and you see what's happened to that crew. So Voyager and DS9 both take these very different directions, and I don't mean just because one goes Delta Quadrant, one goes Gamma Quadrant, but we see the effects on Sisko from making some of the difficult decisions he has to make, and we also see the effects on Janeway. What's the episode, Larry, where Janeway's really in her darkened room? She has not engaged with the crew.
Oh, the Void.
The Void, yeah. I see that through the lens of mental illness. She's going through something. I don't know if it's depression. I don't know if it's trauma. It's probably a little bit of both. There's a huge consequence.
It was a really, really rough hiatus for her that year, and the season premiere was just nothing she was looking forward to.
No, and like everything else that was airing on UPN at the time, like she was really concerned about. Yeah.
Pigsty looked great compared to the crap they had come later. But yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Do you remember what was the show? 7 days, 8 days.
7 days was a good show.
I like 7 days.
Yeah, it was a good premise, and
it was a good. Was it the lead-in for Voyager, or was Voyager the lead-in?
No, it was always like the night. It was always like the last. They were like, no, Voyager was never like the last show. It was never the 10 o'clock show, or the 9 o'clock show.
Was it the 8 p.m.? Was it the lead-in?
It was. Yeah, it was the 7 or 8. It was the 8 Eastern, 7 Central.
Right.
Lead-on
Right.
Check your local listings for the time in your area.
Well, and folks, for UPN, Resistance was not futile. They definitely merged with WB now, and they're still around.
It's like, they were like, just talk about the revolving. We talk about the revolving door of writers on first seasons of some of the series, but like UPN was just a revolving door of little tin-plated dictator, executives with delusions of competency. Yes.
Our wonderful lifers are kind of bringing up this distinction between some of the different versions of Janeway. Like Christoph says, young Janeway's resistance to old Janeway's plan to get the Voyager home by using Borg's transwarp conduit while destroying it on the way. And then Charlotte also says season 5 Janeway makes a lot of ethically questionable decisions. I think the weight of the decision she made to destroy the array.
Can I? Yes.
Please.
I'm sorry,
yeah, please. I feel a soapbox coming.
On top of, boy, you know me so well now after doing this through Zoom boxes. It's a Zoom box soapbox. The whole premise of the entire series to me. I mean, I'm right there with B'Elanna in the pilot. They make such a big deal. Janeway is so big into following the Prime Directive. So how do you follow? So you are a jerk somewhere new. You're plopped down in a new, and you look around, and there are two people fighting. One is a bully, one is kind of defenseless, and you've plopped down there, and there's somebody else. There's a third party that's keeping the bully from wiping out the defenseless person. But the third party is not only about to die, but they're the ones that have the key to the door that brought you there. So the way you follow the Prime Directive is you jump in the middle of it and you blow up the bully, and there's a natural order. It may have grown unnatural. How is this any different than rescuing someone on a planet who are pre-warp and their volcanoes are about to blow up the planet? I've never understood why Janeway is a hero for the Prime Directive by jumping in the middle of this thing that is not her fight. And not only is it not her fight, it's the way she gets home. And so she not only goes and blows up a local status quo, but she screws up her chance to get home at all.
Larry, it's very simple. It's very simple.
That's always. She's like, we've got to do this. And I'm like, no, walk away. You're interfering with these two people's situation, Miss Prime Directive purist. I've never.
Let me explain it to you very simply, Larry. Actually, Cairo said it better than I. She did have a difficult decision: do the right thing or have a series for 7 years. We know what she decided. To add to your point here, Larry, I think the biggest
Star Trek, and you get a series. Okay.
I think the biggest problem with Caretaker is,
well, aside from that whole planet with no water thing, which Jerry did regret later on, but okay.
Yeah. Neelix was so excited to take a shower. Boy, he must have smelled really like a lot of Leola root. The thing that bothers me about Caretaker is the consequences of Janeway's decision is that she really ends up polluting the Delta Quadrant with exposure to Federation and Alpha Quadrant technology. I mean, talk about a Prime Directive conundrum here. By staying, a lot of civilizations are now... their course has been altered.
Getting residuals. No, I'm.
So I think that's the bigger problem.
Well, that's the spin. I mean, I'm talking about in the moment there, big splashy budget on a 2-hour pilot. But yes, the residual effect, no pun intended, is 7 years of planets being, and it creates wars. It's, of course, Friendship 1 is the exact opposite of that. They try to fix something that was already unintentionally corrupted from, a century earlier or whatever. But
yeah,
I just the logical, like, get down and wallow in the reality of it moment for me is the whole pilot was based on a weak premise.
Well, Larry,
anyway,
maybe we should talk about your resistance to Voyager and how it might be futile many years later.
I'm just going to say, from what little I have experienced and seen of the Voyager pilot, though, I'm sorry. Oh, why is that going off? What little I have seen and heard myself and some of the other, a couple of clips from the Voyager documentary. The Voyager documentary hopefully will pull no punches about a lot of things about Voyager.
Yeah.
And this is something that'll get explored.
We know that it will definitely pull no punches when it comes to macroviruses. One of my favorite episodes.
Okay. Well, that was a very non-resistant Janeway, and that's a place where somebody made a comment here about the irony of resisting, resistance in a medical sense, like resisting disease and immunity level versus
Oh, sure.
resisting something that maybe you shouldn't resist after all, and you should embrace or find another approach at. But we should. We should probably move on. There's some other series, and
Yeah. We've got a lot, folks, and we're still in the first segment of the show. Who knew we would have so much to say about this?
I'm always like wary about how do we have things framed, and we should
Well,
frame.
let's talk about the next series
We just
because
wandered
it's
around
been
too much in the original series. So yeah,
Larry. It's been a very long road getting from there to here, and of course, I'm talking about Star Trek Enterprise, and I'm talking about this beautiful slow motion Scott Bakula running on
Yeah.
this.
I saw that filmed. Yeah.
You saw that filmed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
The season ending. I was on set 2 or 3 days for that one.
A lot of pyrotechnics in that shot. I'm surprised you got the chance to see it. I feel like that's like one shot where they would want the most minimal amount of people on the set.
Way in the back. Yeah. It was on monitors way in the back. Yeah.
So this is really the end of the Xindi storyline, right? This is the destruction of that big Death Star weapon that the Xindi.
0 hour.
Yeah, 0 hour sounds right.
9 a.m. Okay. And I'm gonna be high. 0 hour, 9 a.m. Okay. And I'm gonna. Rocket Man.
Yeah, I know. I was letting you have a moment there.
I wasn't gonna waste any more time singing.
It's gonna be a long, long time till I find the Xindi and hunt them down. But I am not the man I was back home. No. I got a Warp 5 ship.
I'm a NASA man. Okay, I was a NASA man.
I'm a Starfleet man,
Not
Larry.
School kids all the time. Okay.
Oh man! And if our audience hasn't completely
Resistance
deserted
wasn't
ourselves,
futile. Yay on him. Pick up allies. Re-engage the problem. Okay, now we've done Enterprise. Okay,
let's talk about Enterprise.
Oh, no, I just did. I did it. There, bang. We can move on.
All right. Well, so what do we want to say about the Xindi storyline here, and when is Resistance futile?
It didn't save the series. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I went K3 there. No, I mean, to some degree, this is about plotting drama, and all of Star Trek, to some degree, on the meta level, is about all the characters are going to resist because there wouldn't be drama without it. And if you have perfect people, and Gene is still really bearing down on that, but at least they're more perfect than we are today, which is the Star Trek ideal. To some degree, the writers, as much as anything else, are trying to thread a needle of how much resistance is good and who and what. I mean, that's what they're writing anyway. So we have these big picture examples we've been talking about all day, but there's a little bit of this in every. I mean, that's human interaction.
Sure.
We just think about it on an epic scale. We're talking about a theme like this, and we're talking about some of these shows. So on some of these cases, it's like I'm still. People have thrown out some examples, but I'm still trying to get back to a case where walking away, and not walking away for a moment, but walking away for real, for good, was the ultimate. It was the ultimate answer, and it was the answer for the best. But no, the Xindi year on Enterprise was resisting to the nth degree until you win because you feel like you had to, and there was an adversary that finally was revealed and all that.
Yeah, I think what is cool about the Xindi storyline is the Enterprise and Archer really enter the Expanse, not to be confused with the Expanse. They enter the Expanse.
The Delphic Expanse.
The Delphic Expanse, thank you. They enter this region of space believing that the Xindi are one thing and that they are going to avenge Earth. They're going to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. And they're going to resist this foe. And I don't
think it's about vengeance. I think it's about eliminating a threat.
Yeah.
That apparently is relentless.
Yeah, I think Trip wants some revenge.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Individual. Yes.
Maybe. Yeah. That's definitely not their mission. It's not Marvel. They're not the Avengers. Um, but boy, I would like to see that crossover. Um, what what happens with Archer is over the course of that story, they realize that the Zindi are much more than they thought, and what they think they are resisting is much more complicated than they realize. And the only way to really take down this threat, is by working with different factions within this indie. So I think that part of the storyline is cool, especially given the context of this post 9/11 era in the United States. That kind of message that you might have assumptions about who you think your enemy is, and those assumptions are usually often wrong. And you need to sort of work together to kind of figure out what the real problem is, what is really contributing to this. That's what I kind of took from
Well,
that.
one part of this is don't fall for easy answers. If something really relentless or something really catastrophic happens, it's easy to look at the surface, or either the surface is not presenting itself, or someone wants you to not see what's below the surface, whether that's the assassination of your adversary, like Gowron, or that is figuring out that somebody's being manipulated to oppose you, like the Zindi Council. I mean, it's like it's a part of the backup and disengage, at least for now, is go re-examine evidence, the assumptions, and all that, and maybe there's go dig down 2 or 3 layers and see what's the real reason for the. Am I getting therapeutic here? See what the real reason for the conflict is. Maybe you can resist if you know what's really causing the opposition.
Yeah. Yes.
Did I give you enough chance to go catch up on chat there?
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of good comments here. Nathaniel says, does the first season finale have Discovery walking away from their anger?
No, it has them walking away from the writing staff's anger. Writing staff's chaos. Yeah.
And the studio's frustration too. Yeah, speaking of the new Star Trek era, we should probably let's do one example from the new era before we get to our other segments here, because we are running short on time.
Yeah.
And I think this all starts with Picard and Q-Who and the Borg storyline, which is tied to Picard. So let's kind of wrap up this segment with Star Trek Picard. And this is a great moment of when it comes to resistance is futile. I think this is a nice moment. This is Picard coming back to Starfleet and asking for he's asking for a ship, or he's asking for a fleet?
Yeah, it's a ship and the special status. It's Picard coming back to Starfleet before he leaves it again.
Right.
Which can I tell you a secret, Ollie?
Please. No one's listening. Tell me.
He like did the exact same thing in Insurrection, but nobody cared.
Yeah. Totally. It's the whole movie. It's the
taking
whole...
off. I sent you the image, but it's taking off one pip at a time.
Oh, right. It is exactly that moment. It's exactly that moment.
Yeah. Only in Insurrection he cuts to the chest. I mean, in Picard he just takes off a comm badge or whatever. Takes off a visitor badge, which you'd never think he was actually a lizard person under human guise, but he is, because he's wearing that visitor badge. Bang. There's Picard. Okay, now we can move on.
Well, what I like about that scene is, and I know a lot of people are angry about the scene because the Admiral swears. I don't know. But it is Picard having all of this privilege as his history in Starfleet, and thinking that he can cash in on this history and Starfleet will just give him a ship and let him go on this mission, as if like they're going to ignore that he's left Starfleet in protest with the decision that Starfleet made to not necessarily help the Romulan refugees in the way that he wanted. There is a lot of sheer frackin' hubris here. Yeah.
See, but I don't. Something that upsets so many people. But if when you have someone who is so celebrated, you're praise, 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 and you earn it. It's not like false praise.
Right.
And then you throw a fit and you go away, and then there's a huge crisis. All of your old instincts are activated, and you come back. You come back to the place where you were, because on one hand, him leaving. The whole synth ban and Mars attack and all of that. Mars attacks. All of that was a huge trauma. But Picard's lived a while. I don't know if you knew this, but Picard's like 90. And he has a lot of other life to balance that. That's like we talk about.
Especially now, he's got a lot of life.
Other parts of the world have a much longer memory span than stupid Americans do in their ADD culture. They remember things from 20 years ago, much less, Will Rogers said the short memory of American voters is what keeps politicians in office. But I think, we are tragically short-memoried opposed to other. And boy, those Romulans remember back thousands of years on their wacky theories. But Picard personally he's not looking back to anything. He's just living in his whole life experience, which is the Mars attack and the blow up. It was the last thing he interacted with Starfleet over, but he had all those decades before that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Reactive. You don't always just go back to the last. I mean, you think about it. He wasn't ignorant of it, but he was in the wealth of years there.
Yeah,
he innovated that, and people, they all focus on the F word line. And the admiral there being pissy to him, and she's supposed to be a sign that I knew she wasn't corrupted or she wasn't a mole like O was, because she's reacting the way you would react.
Yeah, and
it's been 12 years or whatever, and this blow up, and she wasn't making decisions then, but she knows she was in the culture and knew exactly what happened. And this guy's gotten old and crazy and rogue, and so he's like, fine, you think I'm old and crazy and rogue? I'll show you old and crazy and rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, I was totally at home. People were like, "Oh my God!" But it's like, no, it's you. In the reality they have sketched for this character in this universe, that's totally expected. But he's leaning on all those decades when he was the golden child and praised and head of the flagship of the fleet and blah blah blah. And
So to continue to unpack that,
so he did think he could resist.
Yeah, and we know from Generations that Picard is the descendant of many people who have settled, the Picards that settled on Mars, the explorers and all of this sort of stuff. So we know that his family is highly privileged. He comes from a long line of people who have been explorers and all of this stuff. And I know the economics of future are different. At the same time, you got to imagine that if you have ancestors who have done all of these amazing things, it is going to give you some type of privilege or advantage of knowing, here's how you get into Starfleet, here's how you can become an explorer and a scientist and all of that. We know he has this massive estate, and we know there is some discrepancy among Earthlings given Rafi and given where she's living. She's living where the Gorn live, Larry. She's out there in Vasquez Rocks. That is what took me more out. I'm like, don't break the fourth wall. Don't reveal that they're Vasquez Rocks.
Well, but then I did a whole Tuesdays live on this subject. But yeah, I called it "You Can't Force Feed Utopia." But
yeah. I know where you're going here.
All the there were like 15 different implications. The minute they put that down there, there was enough anyway showing Raffi in this trailer. But I was like, but that trailer is still full of high-tech gadgets, and she still has all this.
Sure.
She still has a home. She has security. She has everything she needs.
Yeah.
She just isn't cured of some addictions and some personal emotional devils. So anyway, we won't go there. We don't have time. But maybe we can
Yeah.
do that as a topic sometime.
No, and so like he's definitely Picard has definitely lived some type. He's definitely had a lot of
Yeah.
privilege when it comes to his
But it opens the
Starfleet.
door on exactly what Picard's setup there
Yeah,
is. In
yeah, and
Picard.
as Cairo says, the man has just insulted Starfleet in a public interview, and now he comes in and he thinks the same Starfleet is obligated to help him on a crazy mission. And I think that is the hubris here.
Yeah.
And I know we
Again,
haven't.
60, 70 years of that versus like, oh, that was 5 minutes.
Yeah,
You know?
and I know people have a lot of reaction to swearing, and is this only because it's on CBS All Access and you can and you're
Or
trying
Star
to drama,
Trek or whatever.
but
Yeah.
look at the context. Texture, not trivia. Something I've long been known as coining the term for. It's a term that comes from years and years of the Psych Show here. I'm trying to get Larry's attention. I don't think he's listening to me.
I just read something awesome in the chat. I'm sorry.
No. It's so if you look at the texture, not trivia.
It's an hour old. Uh-huh.
If you look at the texture, not trivia here, Larry, these are two peers. These are two people who have known each other for years, who have spent the bulk of their lifetime in Starfleet. One is still in it. The other is not. And the swearing comes out of these two peers being in the room together. Yeah.
Yes.
There's research that shows that swearing can be, when people swear, it can be, it reduces the intensity of some of the anger and emotions that they might be experiencing. So I think that's what kind of plays out here. And Picard comes in thinking that, oh, there's no way she would ever say no to me. But what's happening there is his lifetime of having more of a privileged Starfleet career is coming into play, and that's the sheer effing hubris there. Anyways.
Yeah, my quibble is more with her delivery than it is the line itself. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so Larry, I think we're going to do something that we haven't done in a while, which is I'm going to do a combined counselor's log and away mission here.
Okie dokie.
And this is where the counselor's log is usually when I do a deeper dive into the psychology behind what we're talking about. And the away mission is when I give you a specific task or something you can do to apply the stuff that we're talking about. And what you're going to see is my attempt at doing the two at the same time.
It's two segments in one.
It's two. And when we get these 2 in 1, you know what? Your reward for making it through these 2 in 1 is a K3. See what I did there, Larry?
Wow. Okay. Did you ever do magic when you were a kid?
I did. Poorly.
Okay.
So Larry, there's
a great Larry here too. Yes. Okay.
There's a term for this. Yes, there.
People who did magic as a kid.
No, for when is resistance futile? It's called goal disengagement, and this is when we decide, hey, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. Resistance actually is probably futile. I'm going to back away. I'm not going to pursue this anymore. Goal disengagement. And
I'm thinking of losing soccer teams, but okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about the times where you've been working towards something, it's not working, and you decide, you know what, I'm gonna back away from this entire thing. That's goal disengagement.
Cut and run.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so much, I'm going to speak specifically to American cultural bias. So much of what we are taught is never give up, never surrender, pursue your dream with everything you've got, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Like, that's a lot of the stuff we're kind of force-fed in America. And the reality is that a lot of times when we decide to disengage with a goal that is not no longer fruitful for us. Converse to this is going to be interesting. Converse to what we think that people would be unhappy if they give up on goals. That's not what actually happens, Larry. What the research has shown is when we withdraw from a goal that is being blocked, that can't be pursued, that is it's unrealistic, it's unattainable. We actually feel better once we've committed ourselves to pursuing something else. So the question really becomes, when is it a time to give up on a goal? And that's sort of the big question for all of us, is like, we will feel better when we give up on something that is just unattainable. That you are going to feel better. And one of the reasons why people tend to feel better is you see other options that are out there. And this kind of gets me to, you with me so far? Have I completely lost people?
No,
Am I?
okay. To me, this is about reframing. It's try to snatch victory from the jaws of the straight way of this. It's about not looking at something as a crushing defeat or a crushing disappointment, but reframing and coming at it, getting most of what you want, or getting what you want from a different angle. But trying to pull yourself out of this nosedive, but maybe realizing there's another, living to fight another day, basically.
Yeah. And this gets me to my
Where you can have it both ways. Maybe you don't get what you started off for, but you're not failing, and you're not.
You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you might find that you get an away mission. And
I think Quark also said that, or maybe in another. Okay.
So what I want to recommend to folks, if you are at all interested in this idea, there's a wonderful episode of a podcast of the podcast called Hidden Brain, which is I think I've mentioned it on Life Support Live before. It's Shankar Vedantam. He is at NPR. I don't know if the podcast still goes on.
This is a different podcast than Arrow Through the Brain, right?
Yes, that's
okay.
That would not be. Yeah, that is. Not this one. But Hidden Brain, there's an episode, maybe Jared or Scott can share the link in the description below. But there's an episode called U 2.0, Getting Unstuck. So I love this episode because this episode, they talk about design thinking. Design thinking is what is really the process behind how most technology is made. And to summarize the process in a nutshell, it's really ironing out what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and then what are all the possible solutions. And here's the key part with design thinking, is you don't pursue one solution. You start from a perspective of there are many possible solutions here. So you kind of map out what are all the possible solutions, and then you pick one and you try it out. You create a beta, you see is it working, and then if it's not working, you go back and you either retool it or switch to another one. Now, the way this applies to your life, they have this great analogy here, which is mapping out like 3 different possible futures for yourself for the next year. What are 3 different possibilities of what you might be doing? And Larry, this is where I think we often struggle, at least in the United States, is we get stuck on one possible future. What do you want to be, kid, when you grow up? The inherent bias there is that there's only one possible thing. Mm-hmm. There's not. Larry, I could have been a contender. I could have been a psychologist. I also considered.
You could have been.
Yeah, I could have been. Somewhere in the multiverse, there's an Ollie who's a psychologist. But look, right now I work at a mental health startup. I could be working as a practicing psychologist. I just
say, Ollie, I admire that because I am all for starting up mental health.
That's literally what we are trying to do.
Yeah.
That's literally what we're trying to do. But there's many versions of it. And this is where I love thinking about the multiverse. And I love this idea that, I wonder what all those other Ollies are doing out there. There's no one set path and set future for you. Somewhere out there, far beyond the stars, is that Riker with the long beard where all the Borg are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's always crack up thinking about that. They're everywhere. Get us out of here.
We're dying and there are no barbers left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But with design thinking, what you really do is you iron out, okay, what are three possible futures for me? And you look at gravity problems. I love this idea. So, Larry, if I told you that, hey, I want to be, Larry, I want to be a professional bicyclist. I want to compete. I want to, do the what is it? It's not the French Open. It's the what's the big biking race?
Oh, I know. It's the one that what's his name cheated at.
Yeah. Anyway, someone in our
Someone
comments.
will say
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
One of the Europeans will know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to become a professional bicyclist. I think I'm going to be really good at it. Larry, the only problem is gravity. If we could just reduce gravity a little bit, I think I would be the Tour de France. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you.
Yeah.
If we could just reduce gravity a little bit, I would just be so good at the Tour de France. I would totally win it. What would be your reaction to that?
It's actually the Tour de France.
Tour de France, yes. If I told you the only problem I have with becoming this professional bicyclist is gravity, how would you respond to that?
I would say it sounds like you're threatening to break the law to get what you want.
There's no that is not a problem that can be fixed, right? Like I can't change gravity. And so a lot of times
You gotta change the laws of physics.
You gotta change the laws of physics. A lot of times we get stuck on paths forward, and we might get stuck on these things that we can't really change. So a lot of design thinking is about understanding what are the possible paths forward and what are the gravity problems. What are the things that, you know what? This thing is not going to it's not attainable because of this, and then letting go of that. So if you all are interested in this kind of like knowing when I need to step back, check out this episode of Hidden Brain, Getting Unstuck. It's a wonderful overview of how to actually do this. With that, Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you. I gave you the two segments, the 2-in-1. Now it's time for a K3.
Okay, I'm going to do a K3 and 0. Oh, wait, I can't do that. Okay. So here's this week's K3. This whole thing about resistance is futile. I was thinking about times when this worked and when it didn't. Or actually, when it worked, but in two different ways. So the first one, I'm going to be very on the nose. For all that we look at, this is the Gene Roddenberry centennial year. Hashtag Think Trek. And for all, you can go to roddenberry.com and see what's happening because the pandemic blew up having big major celebrations of it. So there's a lot of online things happening. I urge everybody to go there. I've talked about it off and on. But one of the hallmarks of Gene that we've gone from guru Gene in the 70s when he was doing the college tours and trying to get Star Trek back some way and find himself and pay bills, to latter days Gene when Next Generation was a hit, but his health was failing, and we having more and more emerging weird stories the last 2 or 3 years of his life that I'm attributing to some mini strokes before he finally did succumb to stroke and die. To this whole, I don't want to say revisionist, but as we are with all history, looking at things through newer eyes. But one thing you can say to Gene, he resisted all the things that young Gene fought against as a freedom to be a storyteller. And the way he was censured most famously probably for the story on his series Lieutenant about a black and a white Marine that fought each other, and it brought up racial issues. But it was too touchy and censored in the South, and the episode was yanked and not funded, and everyone was pissed at him, and yet somehow he sold a series in another couple of years, which was Star Trek. And that first image is just, it's not exactly from the original series, it's from the early making of the motion picture. But Gene was a fighter in that he could go out and be glad handy and be happy. And he was sometimes a tower of jello also, personally. But deep down at his core, he was fighting for these freedoms to tell stories and go places where TV didn't allow him to go. And he kept fighting and, even was demoted in the movie era when things graduated to movies. But with the new paradigm of, okay, these guys this cast is aging. Maybe the whole idea of running the movie franchise is a non sequitur. Go back to TV and maneuver yourself back into, you need me to make the new show a success. And even if you don't, I'll convince fandom of it and they'll hate your new show without me. So what I'm getting at is that then the next image is here's a guy, faults and all, but here's a guy who did not give up on his fight. He did not, he didn't give in to censors and ratings and executives that thought they knew better and all of that. And even with his faults and personal flaws as a person, the big dream, the big bird's dream, as Dee would say, he fought through to get to a sequel, which then he, dies partway through. Other people pick up the mantle, and here we are 55 years later, and we have it. So yay on Gene, if nothing else, for hanging in there and, and also risking looking like a producer who couldn't do anything else. He was pitching other things and trying to produce other things, but it was rare to have anybody hang on to a property because he knew there was something there. Yeah, make money off of it, paying bills, but he knew there was something there that he really genuinely felt for. That's a case, I think, where on the nose resistance is interesting. Behind the scenes, by the way, everybody, K3, behind the scenes version of what we're talking about on the scenes, all this show. But the other case I want to talk about is the story of two writers who became friends while working on Star Trek, became incredible collaborators through the Next Generation, got the honor of doing not one but two Next Generation movies together as writers. And this first picture is them as extras over at the side. So you got Brannon Braga, Ron D. Moore. And this is first contact in the Dixon Hill scene. I think Brannon is on camera. Ron is never on camera. Ron and his first wife, Ruby. But that's like the pinnacle. That's like the pinnacle of Star Trek to me. Pre Kurtzman era.
The golden era.
The golden era. That's the first contact was like the pinnacle. Before Next Gen movies waned, before the two shows were splitting the audience, and we didn't have streaming, and nobody knew how they could watch a show at 2 a.m.
We had the experience. We had, yeah.
Yes. And we had the experience in Vegas. But the point there is that was a pinnacle for Star Trek. And it was also kind of pinnacle for them because the road of the two of them, one working on Voyager, one working on DS9 ending, Voyager is close to ending, and they're all going to get back to work together on the new series, which sadly for many reasons by that time and what's coming out now is that Brannon and Ron, who had been these collaborators and awesome friends from midway through Next Generation, over the span of that 10 years, wound up being totally out. It was Brannon, it was like a parallel to the Kate Jerry story among the cast on Voyager. There was a jealousy thing, there was an immaturity thing, there was way too much power and pressure and success coming at people. And basically, Ron came to Voyager to work for 2 years while they all worked on the new series that would turn out to be Enterprise. And as we know, he was only there a month. He wrote a script, he wrote a story. He was basically forced out when he found out that all his friends, his big friend, and the maneuvering of Rick Berman, this is all out now, going to be explored a little bit in the Voyager documentary, I think, but how he only was there like a month. This the fanboy who wrote the script, the bonding, and came in and was Mr. Klingon and Mr. Heartfelt Show and fought for family after Best of Both Worlds and all of this. What a huge crushing disappointment it was for him to leave Star Trek. And his resistance there, the point being that when he saw how he was being cut out of new series development, how he was even being undermined just working on Voyager, how he cut and run, basically, you might say at the time. But aside from the fact that, and I got the other picture there too, aside from the fact that the two of them have made up with the passage of time, part of Brannon's big apology tour for the end of Voyager and Enterprise has also been apologizing for the way he treated Ron back in the day, about like the way Kate has apologized for the way she treated Jerry back in the day. But part of Resistance's future is Ron just walked away. He didn't belabor it. He didn't try to fight the forces in his face right then. He walked away, did his own thing, got his own shingle and his own resume going, found a way to come back, found a way to always, eventually to be with Brannon and all these documentary shoots and, the joint things and the joint appearances. And this is Vegas in 2016. So by that time, they had found a way to make up. But in the moment, Ron's course was resistance wasn't futile. It was, I'll go away and live to fight another day. And I'm not going to bloody everybody here with a huge Hollywood, drama queen moment as I leave. I'm not going to wipe out the room as I, walk out the door. But anyway, but he didn't resist making that right eventually, and he's
Yeah.
personally made it right. And I think he would at some point in the future. I think he'd be thrilled. He didn't kill Star Trek he was such a Star Trek fanboy. It didn't kill it for him. But in the
No.
moment he did that, that was the right course for him.
Yeah, it
And
was, and it's because Ron Moore was able to. I mean, he was a huge fan. He got into Star Trek on a spec script, right?
yeah, the Bond
He did.
orphan boy.
Yeah, he did. For those of you who remember, he did all those AOL chats in the '90s where he was answering fans' questions.
That was revolutionary.
Yeah, yeah. I remember like reading all of those transcripts. I didn't have
in real
AOL, but people would repost the transcripts of the chats on trekweb.com, which I read voraciously. And I remember reading all. I mean, this guy was a true fan and still is. But because he knew when to walk away, that it gets back to that goal disengagement, that he knew that the vision of Star Trek I want to make is unattainable given the current circumstances of Star Trek. So I am going to walk away. And as a result of him walking away, he was able to create Battlestar Galactica, which is really he was making one of the guiding decisions of that show was whatever Star Trek would do in this situation, I'm going to take a very different direction. The score, I'm taking a different direction. The way the characters interact, I'm taking a different direction. Like it was in many ways it was I don't want to say it's an anti-Star Trek show, but it's the show he made after finding his storylines being more unattainable in Star Trek. So for him, it was absolutely the right direction to go, was to back away from that goal. And as a result, we got a beautiful piece of science fiction out of it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot more too. I mean, Outlander and whatever it is he's working on now.
For All Mankind.
Oh, yeah. And For All Mankind. Yeah. A lot of things along the way. But again, things have come full circle now to where I think he'd be happy to come. I saw something the other day where I haven't talked to him directly in a while, but I think if now that we have a buffet of Star Trek choices and the formats of storytelling have opened up so much, everything from short treks to 10 episode series, animated, live action, whatever. Now the merry-go-round of movies is happening. But I mean, if there's a way for him to come back and do something, later on, I think he'd be totally open to do it. I think he said that. So, yay. So I don't know if I shocked you or surprised you with anything I did today, Ollie, but
not really.
Nice
I wasn't thinking of Ron Moore's story here, but I think that's a good one actually.
Oh, okay.
I knew it before, but I hadn't thought about it in
this way. Yeah.
In this context. Yeah. Larry, let's. I want to make sure we talk about this right here. San Diego Comic-Con at Home is happening right now. I think you've got some stuff that's going on.
Well, I had one the big Paramount Plus animation panel was yesterday, which was awesome. We alluded to it already. So if you haven't seen it already, go. And I think I was watching. I think Christoph and Cairo. From what I saw of Europeans talking, I guess it's not geo-blocked. So
no, it's just on YouTube. I think it's accessible.
Well, it's on their site, but yeah, this isn't studio, so Comic-Con's in control of it. So if you want the link to this, you can go to my site, or you can just look at the Friday schedule and go down to 6:00 Pacific time and see it. It's on repeats now. It debuts at a certain time. There's hundreds of panels going. It's like a full bore Comic-Con virtually again, but this was something the same but different. It was space lawyers, all of whom are sci-fi nerds of one kind or another. Star Trek, Star Wars, The Expanse, Firefly. And one's a reporter. And then Melinda Snodgrass is down there, who is she says, recovering attorney, but, who wrote Measure the Man and many other things. And it's all of them talking about sci-fi law versus real law. And the upshot of it is how much is going on right now that's really off the radar. But it's in our face as the future, and we should know about it. Anyways, I just was really thrilled to be approached by them to help moderate and get that out there. All of them, their common link is they're all board. They all have different paths, and some of them worked at NASA. Now they're in private practice, but they're all board members of a group called Space Court Foundation, which is working on these things, and it's all came out of my enterprise and space contacts. But anyway, I saw people in the chat talking about having seen it or they're about to. So it's Star Trek and Star Trek adjacent, and yes, there's plenty of. It's kind of like what we do, only instead of mental health, the adjacent subject was law and treaties and individual rights and resources and a great update right now. So anyway, it's we geek out plenty of times. We have some Samuel Cogley moments. I'll just say that.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff happening there. So, and thank you to the folks who have already posted the link there.
I do want to say one thing. Do I have something about the store?
You do?
Yes,
it's right here.
I want to let everybody know. And I was going to get a picture of this. There's a brand new shoot. Maybe Scott or Jared could put the link up. Maybe Scott can. This is the store it's a Trekland store, but I have Life Support Live items there. There's a mug in the picture. We just put up a new one with our cartoon heads, a new design on Life Support. But I know some of you have the t-shirts already. I have a drinking mug. Yay. You saw that. But this weekend through Sunday, it's a 35% off sale. That's what you can go to everywhere at TeePublic, and there's lots of cool stuff there. But all of my brands are there, not just Life Support Live. But if you're going to buy something, and if you want something, assuming Vegas still happens and we don't have Revenge of the Delta, if you want something before the cons that are happening live, or if you just want something for your Zoom box, this is the time to get it by the end of Sunday. They cycle these sales around, but right now is probably the last time before Vegas, if nothing else. We just put up a slew of new designs. I've got see the hashtag stack back there on a computer case. Anyway.
And if Vegas is happening, Larry, tell folks about this.
Yeah. So this is going to end August 3rd, but this is our one-day Valley of Fire tour that I do with Terrace Cassidy at Geek Nation Tours. Although if Canada doesn't open up, Terrace can't come down. So it's hello 2021. Ali, I said, so this is Geek Nation Tours. If you're going to Vegas, if you can join us early on Tuesday, we go out. It's about 6-7 hours with the 1 hour one-way bus ride. But this is where Kirk died, where the scenes were shot in Star Trek Generations. We've done that tour 4 or 5 times. Sometimes it's a one day, sometimes it's the last day of the big tour. But it's a lot of fun. There's some surprising and some fun stuff. And there's a lot of natural history about the natives, the geology of the area that we also take into. We have a lot of it's lunch there. And you're back at 2. We go early to beat the heat in the desert. We're back at 2. You've still got the day before the con opens. It's Con Eve.
It's if you look at the reviews online too, the reviews have been great. My favorite review, Larry says, it was fun.
You totally suckered me on that. I was like, what? They're reviewing it online? What? That's a thing. Yes, indeedy doodle. Yeah. Anyway, but that brings back around to, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'll just tell everybody. So Janet and I decided we're going to go get tested. Monday was the first time we're fine. We had some sniffles and things. We had a house guest here for about a month who had a really bad, it feels like allergy, and we've all been vaccinated. But with all this news about, what do they call it? The breakdown or the breakthrough on vaccinated people?
The breakthrough cases, yeah.
We're just curious about what's happening. Vegas is having a big spike, just like LA County is.
It's a complex situation because we had my daughter tested for COVID a few weeks ago because she had a runny nose and a cough. It was a stronger than usual cough. It ended up not being COVID, but the symptoms of a cold can also look like COVID. So since the world is opening up more, people are getting sick more, like with the common cold. So it's right. And my daughter can't be vaccinated. So
things we did to fight the virus are the things you could do this to fight common colds and flu. I mean, you could do the Asian cultures have got to where you see them a lot just wearing masks anyway.
Yeah, it's a culture. Yeah, depending on the country, there's a culture of wearing a mask when you are sick to
but keep. All of our germs and viruses have been starved for us the last year. So
they really miss us. Music means we are coming to the end of the show here. Larry, there was a lot to discuss about this episode.
There's so many good chat things. I want to. So Charlotte asked very early. The Comic-Con panels are still up right now.
Oh,
Once
yeah.
they
They'll
debut,
stay
they're
up.
there, so you can go find them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some
No,
wonderful comments.
so much.
So many great comments. People were wondering which doc is Glinda and which doc is Elphaba. Larry, are you a Wicked fan?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I know the show. I want to see it sometime. You talking about the musical?
Yeah, the musical.
Yeah. No, I'm not. But go ahead.
Well, I
would
mean,
see if I ever
I
saw it, I'm
can't,
sure.
I can't sing it without you. I can't sing it without you. But we'll let the audience determine who is whom. I think I lean more Elphaba. I don't know. We'll let the audience determine who might that be.
We'll let you decide.
And I love this. Glinda had a great comment here. I believe someone wants to find a compromise as a solution that neither side is happy with. Jonathan Archer.
As yet another famous Starship captain.
Yeah. You know, Larry, we really need to do an Enterprise watch along. We haven't done that.
I was thinking that, yes.
Yeah.
Can I say also that there was a lot of voting in the theme poll for Far Beyond the Stars?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said we need to do that as a watch along and then have a discussion after.
Yeah. For hours. We can have a discussion about that. And speaking of that, there's so many wonderful themes and ideas. So folks, let us know what you want to do a watch along for. Let us know what themes you want us to tackle. This theme just came from you all. This was not our idea. This was your theme.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd love to get more ideas. And until next time, Larry, where can people find you?
We're there, huh? LarryNemecek.com everything is there. It's about to get a little bit of a facelift. But Larry Nemecek on Twitter, Larry Nemecek's Trekland on Facebook and Instagram. 1 p.m. Tuesday. Love to have you if you can. Join us for Tuesdays Live or watch it later on all those channels. And this thing I do on Saturday. Oh, wait, we're there. And the Trek Files is back from Roddenberry. It drops every Tuesday. We're in our 7th season, having some awesome guests.
And I'm at Ollie Mattu on social, and the Psych Show is where you can find me. And until next time, folks, live long and prosper.
Oh, we're there. Trek well, everybody.